The Carolina Hurricanes are kicking off training camp this morning at PNC Arena. So while they're doing that, we are going to recap the Carolina Hurricanes offseason on this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you are listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, I'd like to thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Thursday morning. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at LO_Hurricanes. Myself on Twitter at JaredEllis_96. And subscribe to the show on YouTube. And as I mentioned, the Carolina Hurricanes are kicking off training camp this morning. And that's actually underway right now. And we will be recapping the first day of training camp later on this evening once everything is wrapped, obviously, and details start to emerge of just what happened today. So we'll go over that later on today in another episode. But in the meantime, we're going to recap the Carolina Hurricanes offseason and give a few predictions of what we could potentially see in this upcoming season. And this idea is coming from the Carolina Hurricanes team reporter and show alum Walt Ruff. He put out an amazing article last night recapping the Carolina Hurricanes offseason. So definitely go read that for the full story. I'm just going to be hitting key points here and things that I took away from it. So go read that article. Is really good stuff. It was really helpful for me because it was there's stuff in there that I didn't remember happened. So definitely go read that. But in diving on into this, we're first going to look at the names that left and the names that are coming in or came in rather. So the folks that are gone in memoriam for three of them, except for one. Nino Niederreiter signed in Nashville. We talked about that the other day when Don Waddell talked about him at the 5K. Was really disappointed that he wasn't able to get him back, and that he hopes to be able to get him back one day. I think really everyone would be happy about that, of getting Nino back at some point, whether it be free agency, trade, what have you. But Nino Niederreiter is now gone. Vincent Trocheck is also gone. He signed a big long-term deal with the New York Rangers. Waddell at that 5K said that Trocheck wasn't going to be back. Raleigh wasn't for him. He wanted to be in a big city, and he wasn't going to be back. I did speculate the other day on whether or not if that was the case come trade deadline, if they knew they weren't going to be able to get anything done. At that point, did they shop him around to see what they could potentially get for him so they didn't come away empty-handed, like what ended up being the case? But he's another one that is gone. Stephen Lawrence is now gone. He is now in San Jose. He left in that Brent Burns trade. He's now out there in Southern California. Obviously wishing him all the best out there. I know that was one while folks were very excited for Burns to come in, and they were also very disappointed that Lawrence is now gone. A lot of folks loved him. He has a lot of upside, could potentially be a really key piece for San Jose going forward in his career. Again, wishing him all of the best. And then the one that we're going to breeze on by is Tony DeAngelo. Was negotiating rights were trade to Philly, and he signed there. So he is now in his hometown. But those are all of the names that are now gone, or at least the bigger names. I know Lawrence was not mentioned in that article, but I know a lot of folks really do like Stephen Lawrence and are going to be following his career there in San Jose now. So I did want to mention him as well. But we now also have some extensions. Ethan Bear signed his extension. He was one that I was kind of questioning of whether or not they would be bringing him back because he, as a whole, did not have a great season, did not live up to the expectations that were had for him. And everyone kind of agrees of what went wrong for him. And that was, when he went out with COVID, on their only California road trip in San Jose, actually, stuck in a hotel room for quite a while and had the effects of long-term COVID hampering his season. Because before, he was looking really good, but after that, not so much. And then, he didn't play at all in the playoffs, and I personally thought that was very telling for his future with the team in that he didn't play at all during the playoffs, and I figured that kind of signaled the end for him, but ended up not being the case. He's back. So obviously, hoping good for him this year that he can bounce back. And another one that got his extension done was Martin Necas, and he was one that it took quite a while for his extension to get done, and it was one that, we all kind of figured, like, all right, it's probably going to happen. Like, what's going on here? Because it did take a very long time for his extension to get done. And I think because he is one with such an upside, but like Bear, he didn't have the best season. And I think, the Hurricanes were in the camp of what have you done for me lately? And it wasn't much. And they're also like, all right, he does have this upside. We don't want to lose him, because he can be a real big key piece going forward. But, it eventually got done. He got that bridge deal that we were all kind of speculating that he would get, that Andrei Svechnikov would have got last offseason, but he just went ahead and got his big boy, big extension. So, it's that stuff is done now. And now we have the new folks as well. We have previously mentioned Brent Burns coming over in a trade along with Elaine Patterson. Also in that deal, San Jose ended up retaining some salary for Brent Burns, which you kind of figure they'd have to do because of his salary is pretty hefty. So I think a lot of folks are very, very excited about him being here. I think he's the one that a lot of folks are talking about of what he can do. A lot of folks are predicting, big, not necessarily breakout seasons because he is a stud defenseman. He's won a Norris, and everyone knows what he can do. It's not a breakout season, but almost a return to form, I guess you would say. But even then, you look at him last year, you have 54 points, on a really bad San Jose team. Folks are expecting it. Again, not necessarily a breakout or a return season, but they're expecting big things from him this year. I think he's gonna thrive here. That's something that had been echoed by Walt Ruff, by Mike Maniscalco here on the show. That a lot of folks are, they're expecting that from him this year. And he's 37 years old, but he's one that takes really good care of himself. And here, we have great training staff, great facilities, and great medical facilities. Should anything happen, he's going to be really taken care of. Like another one that came in, Max Patcheretti. That was another one. A lot of folks were looking forward to him coming, and they still are, of course. Don't get me wrong, but he came over in trade from Vegas along with Dylan Coghlan for essentially nothing at all. I think it was a conditional 4th round pick, if I remember correctly. But again, basically nothing. They really forced Vegas's hand on that because of Vegas's cap situation, and a lot of folks were looking forward to him. Really bringing some offense here. We've talked about it a lot in the postseason and regular season too, how the offense just kind of dries up and nothing there. And Patcheretti, he's got to help with that. But now he won't be helping with that until probably about late January or early February, should everything go right for him. And because he tore his Achilles, and he's not on the training camp roster. So but we know why for him. We know why. And we'll get him back. Mike Maniscalco pointed out when he was on the show that it'd essentially be like a trade deadline pickup, kind of time frame wise for him. So it's not like he comes back at like the tail end of the season or anything. He still gets a decent chunk here with the team. It'll be very interesting to see how that goes. Again, we already talked about Brent Burns and Lane Pedersen. We also had a couple free agent pickups. Andre Kasha, he is now a Carolina Hurricane, and that's one that a lot of people have glossed over. It's someone I've glossed over. I forget, like, oh, yeah, he's on the team now. And I remember when that happened, talking with JD from Locked On Ducks. I remember back it was either a first or second season of Locked On Hurricanes. It was around the trade deadline. Like, oh, maybe he comes to Carolina. Maybe Anaheim and Carolina get a trade done for him, and then he signs here. I'm like, I told you he would be a Hurricane. We're just a little late on it, but he is now a member of the Carolina Hurricanes. So that's going to be a fun one to watch. Again, I know JD from Locked On Ducks is going to enjoy that. And then finally, we have Paul Statsny coming over. He is the most recent addition. And, one that, you look at his deal like 1 year, 1.5 million. A lot of folks are like, oh, that's a steal. And he is older, but he's one like Brent Burns. He is still able to get out there and produce, put up points, put the puck in the back of the net. And really, the only concern I've seen with folks, of him coming in is, can he keep up, in terms of his skating speed? I think, maybe at the start of the season, you'll see, him maybe struggle a little bit. But as time goes on, he'll fit in, get used to it, because, we saw the same thing from Brendan Smith last year. Kind of at the start of the season, he looked a little out of place, not able to keep up, and kind of sticking out like a sore thumb. But as the season went on, he actually went down with that skull fracture, and he came back and he looked a lot better. And I expect something like that. Especially with really all the new guys coming in. Really, I could see that being the case of like, because of Rod Sisson and how fast they skate and how hard they skate. That at first some of these new additions could struggle to keep up, especially some of the older guys. I could see that being the case, and then just as time goes on, they get used to it and get where they need to be. I could see that being the case, but we also have a few PTOs as well that we want to talk about, and we'll talk about more about those guys and what we can expect from them right after this quick break. Now, folks, BetOnline is the place to go if you're wanting to place your bets. Pro and college football season is underway. The Carolina Hurricanes opening night is less than a month away now. It'll be here before we know it. And again, BetOnline is the place to be for all of your sports betting needs. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your sports betting information. Find the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all of your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. Again, Carolina Hurricanes season is right around the corner. If you're a Panthers fan, they got you covered. If you're a Wolfpack fan, they got you covered. If for some reason you're a Tar Heels fan, they got you covered. They are the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, golf, wrestling, whatever. They're there for you. So head over to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Now, folks, again, I mentioned there's a few guys on PTOs, professional tryouts, and that is Derek Stepan, Calvin DeHaan, and Gregory Dronov. Struggling with the pronunciation there. I do apologize. I know I butchered it. But yeah, these guys are on PTOs. We've speculated on whether or not we could see these guys slotting into a lineup and getting themselves a contract. And I think that there is, at least for Stepan and DeHaan, I think there is chances for them. I do. And and another name I just totally remembered that we got back now is Ryan Dzingel. He signed a 1-year, 2-way deal. So he's another guy that came back and is a new addition. But he's like Calvin DeHaan, knows the system. Yes, there's been some coaching changes since then, but as a whole, he's one that knows the system, and I'm not overly concerned about him struggling to fit or anything like that. But again, a PTO, these guys, they don't have contracts or anything like that right now. But I do think, again, for Stepan and DeHaan, I do think that there is a legitimate shot of them getting deals. I don't see. I think the most likely option, these contracts, I could potentially see them being 2-way contracts. And I think that would be the most likely because you figure, like, obviously, Stepan, he isn't going to be like on the second line or anything like that. But when Patcheretti were to come back, that's a name like he's going to be slotting in. And that's going to bump somebody out. Somebody, somewhere is going to be bumped out with him coming back in. So, is he, scratch, kind of like, last year? I could potentially see that be the case of, like a bargain 1-year deal. I could potentially see it being a 2-way deal, just so he's able to play. And that would probably help the salary cap as well, because once again, the Carolina Hurricanes are pressed up to the salary cap. Same with Calvin DeHaan, because we've talked about it at length with that third defensive pairing of all of the names they're vying to get in. And obviously, you figure there's probably going to be, an extra guy or two, again, like last year, having, that extra guy. I could totally see that. But again, a lot of folks vying for that spot. You got Ethan Bear, Jalen Chatfield, Dylan Coughlin, Calvin DeHaan, Gregory Doronov, William Lagson, and Max Lajoie. So I could definitely see it being the case of, again, this is what I don't know. This is going to be very hard. I think, Bear with his extension, I think he's probably going to be up there. I think, Coughlin, he's a guy that you could look for being there, and obviously Chatfield being in the mix, and then DeHaan, because now those are the 4 names I'm looking at, because Jake Gardner is not on that training camp roster. We talked about it before, him potentially going back to long-term IR. So, that's, what we're looking at there with him. And, I think those are going to be the 4 guys there. I think. All right, here's my official prediction, folks. I think we are going to see a similar situation to last year. 3 guys there on that bottom pair. I think it'll be Bear, Coughlin, and Dahan. I think that's what we'll be looking at. Dahan, I think it's a toss-up of whether or not it's a 1 or 2-way deal. And I feel like, he'd probably want it one way, and just stay in the NHL, but, I think, a 2-way could be done as well. But, that's just something we'll have to wait and see. But I think that's kinda what we'll be looking at there. I think Chatfield, he'll go back to AHL, stay on his 2-way. I think that's what we'll be looking at there. But again, could very much have a situation like last year where, he just forces, the staff's hand like Seth Jarvis did. But ultimately, that's what we're going to be looking at there as far as the defense. And again, it's going to be Slavin, Burns, Shea, Pesci. That's what we're going to be looking at there. Again, that bottom 3, I think it'll be Bear, Coughlin, and Dahan. That's what I think we'll be looking at. Maybe an outside shot of Chatfield, but ultimately, I think he's on that 2-way deal. I think he's going to be in Chicago. Again, unless he just forces her hand. But we also have a very, very deep group of forwards as well. Where I touched on Derek Stepan of where he could potentially be slotting in there on that bottom line. And we will dive more into the forward groups and what we're looking at there right after this quick break. Now, folks, again, we got the forwards now. A lot of names there, a lot of guys that are going to be vying for roster spots. We already talked about Max Patretti. He ain't going to be here until late January, early February. So what we're looking at right now is these guys right here. This is the list of the guys that Walt has in his article. There's obviously a lot more guys on that training camp roster. It's posted on social media on the Hurt, so you guys can go check that out. We'd be here a long time if we were to go through that entire training camp roster, and I'd butcher a lot of names. Let's be honest. So Sebastian Aho, Jesper Foss, Seth Jarvis, Andre Kasha, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Jordan Martinook, Martin H's, Jordan Stahl, Paul Statsny, Andrei Sveshkov, Teuvo Teravainen. Those are the guys they're going to be on the roster. So it's the last 3 spots, and you got Jack Drury, Ryan Dzingel, Stefan Nazin, Lane Pedersen, Derek Stepan, and Malte Stromwall. Excuse me. This is an interesting one. As to what we could potentially be looking at as far as what happens, because again, like I mentioned, someone is going to get bumped out when Max Pacioretty comes back. I think we'll probably be looking at Drury on the center. I think Stepan. I think he'll be back. I do. You kind of look at what they're working with right now. I think he'll be back. And that third spot, it's an interesting one. Stefan Nazin, is a guy that a lot of folks sing his praises of down the AHL of what he's been able to accomplish there. Being a really, really good player. So I think he's a guy that you could potentially see, and I do think Ryan Dzingel. I think he's the guy that you could potentially see back. I really do. He's on that 2-way deal. So you can maybe see him coming back up here. So and then when Pacioretty comes back, easy just slot him back down to Chicago or keep him up as a scratch, whatever it may be. But I think that bottom line, you'll be looking at Jury, Stepan, and Dzingel. That's what I think. I think ultimately they're going to go with Dzingel just for the experience. Again, Nazen, he could be, a scratch. Kind of like how things were for a little bit last year. And we'll just have to wait and see as far as, what's going to go on. Because training camp just started this morning. Roster cuts are gonna happen. Folks are gonna get sent back to where they came from. It's gonna happen, and you never know what's gonna happen in training camp. Again, I keep going back to it. A lot of folks keep going back to it, not just here on this show, is that of Seth Jarvis last year of just forcing their hand. Keeping him up in the NHL. Don't know what's going to happen, but obviously we will talk about whatever does happen here on Locked On Hurricanes. So in the meantime, make sure you follow Locked On Hurricanes on Twitter and Instagram at LO_Hurricanes. Myself on Twitter at JaredEllis_96 and subscribe to the show on YouTube. And I will talk to you guys later today when we recap day 1 of training camp. You guys enjoy your Thursday, and I will talk to you later tonight.